In this talk, I will present our collaborative work on analyzing internet censorship events that occurred in Myanmar earlier this year in the aftermath of a military coup. This work received valuable contributions from multiple teams, IODA, OONI, Kentik, and CensoredPlanet, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to present the results on our behalf. Increasingly, we are observing many instances where authoritative governments censor the internet during political events, such as coups and during protests. We saw censorship events occur in Uganda earlier this year during the elections, in Belarus last year during protests, and in Iran a couple of years ago also during protests. The motivation for this work is to understand how censorship practices unfold and evolve during such events. By analyzing which practices are used, we can increase awareness of ongoing censorship that can in turn be used by anti-censorship advocacy groups. Further, understanding how censorship is implemented can help with circumvention, and also by observing how censorship practices change over time, we can track their evolution. However, it's challenging to measure and understand censorship practices. This is because of the diverse methods available at censors' disposal. They can block selected websites and social media, targeting Facebook, Wikipedia, etc. They may choose to target cellular communications and mobile data in particular, or censors can resort to internet connectivity shutdowns where they can disconnect users from the internet completely. In addition, censors can choose to change the strategy over time. They may implement full connectivity shutdowns during particularly tense protests and then follow up with more targeted blocking. So in this case study, we present a template for how to address these challenges. We use multiple datasets and perspectives to analyze different censorship methods. And we study a 3-month period in the aftermath of a military coup where we observed evolution in the censorship methods that we used. Let me provide some quick political background and context about Myanmar. It's a country in Southeast Asia with a population of 54 million, and for nearly 4 decades it was ruled by a military junta, but began transitioning towards democracy from 2011. Under military rule, there were only 2 ISPs, both controlled by the state. However, democratic Myanmar observed significant growth in internet penetration in the country, with a marked increase in the number of ISPs offering services, including international providers. We would expect, therefore, with this diversity of providers, that the enforcement of centralized censorship measures would be somewhat challenging since it requires coordination between several independent entities. Now, in November last year, general elections had been held and the incumbent party, the National League for Democracy, won the elections in a landslide. But on Feb 1, 2021, the military junta seized power, and the aftermath of the military coup has seen widespread protests, and it is this period that our study investigates. In this figure, we show an overview and timeline of the different censorship events that we've identified with our analysis in the wake of the coup. On the day of the coup, an internet outage affected several providers in Myanmar for different durations. This is followed by social media blocks, with Facebook being blocked on the 4th and Twitter blocked on the 5th. And on the same day that Twitter was blocked, we also observed a Myanmar ace hijacking address space belonging to Twitter, leading to collateral damage for users beyond Myanmar's borders. As protests intensified over the weekend, a massive internet outage lasting longer than 24 hours affected most ISPs in Myanmar. And from the night of Feb 14th onwards, we observed nightly, country-wide internet outages for 72 continuous nights, where nearly all users in Myanmar were cut off from the internet. And in addition to these nightly outages, from March 15th onwards, cellular restrictions were imposed even during the daytime. It was only on April 28th that the nightly outages ended, but at the time of our study, social media blocks and cellular restrictions continued to remain in place. These events collectively are among the most disruptive, long-lasting, and widespread in recent times, and these censorship events operate at multiple layers of the network stack. Social media blocking requires different mechanisms to implement compared to internet connectivity shutdowns. And as a result, observing and analyzing these events also requires diverse tools and datasets, where each tool specializes in measuring a specific form of censorship. For example, IODA detects internet connectivity outages with fine time granularity around the world. IODA monitors the internet 24/7 to measure internet outages, where outages are defined to be events where users are completely disconnected from the internet. It detects outages at 3 levels of granularity, at the country, region, and AS level, that is at the level of individual networks. IODA uses 3 data sources for outage detection: BGP data collected from internet routers, active probing data collected from pings sent to destinations around the world, and traffic from user machines seen at a network telescope. IODA's intuition is that a significant reduction in these sources' time series could potentially indicate an internet outage. And IODA's data is publicly accessible in near real time at ioda.kada.org. Data from Kentik can also help analyze internet outages around the world. Though it can sometimes be less precise in its detection of outage times relative to IODA, it has the key advantage of being able to uncover cellular outages. Kentik is a large network observability company and has access to traffic datasets based on netflow logs from its customers' devices. Netflow is a protocol used to record metadata about IP traffic flows, such as per flow source and destination addresses, packet counts, bytes transferred, etc. Kentik's customers include major Tier 1 ISPs and global providers from whose devices and routers these netflow logs are sampled. And this data therefore provides a view of a large cross-section of internet traffic. To protect individual users' privacy, Kentik aggregated these netflow traffic statistics by source and destination ASs in Myanmar. This aggregation allows us to analyze network-wide trends while still preserving end users' and customers' privacy. I'll now briefly describe OONI datasets that allow us to study website and social media blocking. The OONI project's goal is to measure the blocking of websites, social media apps, and circumvention tools. OONI data is ethically collected by volunteers who provided informed consent, and both the OONI software and datasets are free and open source. The OONI measurements are designed to test first whether a website is reachable from volunteers' vantage points, and if not, whether access is blocked by means of DNS tampering, TCP/IP blocking, or by a transparent HTTP proxy. And for our analysis of the Twitter hijacking event, we use BGP data collected by the RouteFuse and RIPRIS projects. To get more information about any of these datasets, I encourage you to read our paper. So let's dig into some of the details revealed by each of these datasets. First, let's examine internet outages using data from IODA and Kentik. So this figure shows country-level data for Myanmar, that is, data aggregated from all networks, from both IODA and Kentik during the time of the coup, from January 30th to February 9th, showing time series of the traffic from Kentik and the darknet, BGP, and active probing signals from IODA. These signals have all been normalized to fall in between 0 and 1 on the y-axis. Now, we see that there was a drop in the BGP and active probing signals of IODA on Feb 1. And also that there was a much larger drop in all signals on the 6th. We also observed that the duration of the outage on Feb 6 was much longer than that on the 1st. Now in the paper, we analyze these outages further and show that the outage on the day of the coup, on Feb 1st, did not affect all providers to the same extent. Additionally, there were large timing differences in when the outages began and ended across providers. On the other hand, the outage on Feb 6 affected most providers and with similar timing patterns. This could perhaps be due to improved planning and coordination and execution of the shutdown on Feb 6, a few days after the coup. Next, we look at the signals from IODA and Kentik from mid-March. We observe that all the signals appear to drop and increase periodically, and in the paper we show that these periodic drops correspond to nightly internet outages affecting nearly all providers in Myanmar with almost identical timing patterns. We also observe that on March 15th, cellular restrictions began. This is visible as a drop in the countrywide traffic for Kentik. In the paper, we further break this down by individual networks and show that all the major cellular operators had significantly reduced traffic from this day onwards. So what we've seen with these outages is signs of evolution, which could have political implications. We saw that the first outage on the day of the coup was implemented inconsistently across providers, perhaps due to limited authority and lack of access to the appropriate communication channels. Within a week, we observed a multi-day internet outage across most providers that appeared to be better coordinated. And within 2 weeks, we start to observe highly coordinated countrywide nightly outages affecting all providers. So the synchronization of these later outages across providers is consistent with increased government control, which suggests that the extent of government control over the internet could serve as an indicator of political control. Let's next dig into some results from the OONI datasets to find which websites and social media were blocked and how. After the coup, OONI measurements across ISPs showed that multiple social media sites were blocked, including Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. And in addition, censorship circumvention sites were blocked, including Tor and VPN services. We also found informational websites such as Wikipedia and coronavirus.app to be blocked. we found that the blocking mechanisms appear to have changed after the coup. A study by OONI in May 2020 showed that targeted websites were primarily blocked through DNS-based interference. However, after the coup, we observed IP-based blocking, where the IP addresses of domains like Facebook, Twitter, etc. were made inaccessible. We also continue to observe DNS-based blocking, with block pages being returned, suggesting that both forms of censorship were being used. Now, IP-based blocking is a more egregious form of blocking because the same IP address is often shared by other domains, especially for services that use content delivery networks. So this can result in collateral damage for other websites hosted on the same server. While collateral damage due to IP address blocking can be bad, we also observed a different type of collateral damage. Let's briefly look at an instance of collateral damage that affected Twitter users both inside and outside Myanmar due to a BGP hijacking incident. Kampana Mythic, an AS in Myanmar, accidentally announced routes for addresses belonging to Twitter on Feb 5th. This was the same day that Twitter had been blocked in other ASs. These routes leaked outside Myanmar and were received, accepted, and further propagated by operators in Singapore and Vietnam, resulting in collateral damage for users outside Myanmar as well. This event highlights the damage that censorship measures can do, not only to the targeted users, but also to others. So to conclude, internet censorship today is often correlated with political events. Censors can use multiple methods, so censorship analysis in turn requires multiple complementary datasets that can shed light into these methods. Our case study in Myanmar offers a template in how to combine measurements from these multiple perspectives to analyze censorship and draw political inferences. Thank you very much for your attention.